If you have been following this channel, you already knew this ruling was coming. I made a full video about this a few weeks ago. And today, the United States Supreme Court has delivered its verdict. I am talking about the most anticipated legal ruling in America in years. The case that the whole world was watching. The case that was going to decide whether babies born in the United States to foreign parents, including Nigerian parents, would still automatically become American citizens. And the Supreme Court has spoken. 6-3. They voted to uphold birthright citizenship. Trump lost. The 14th Amendment stands. And what that means for Nigerians, for every single person who has been anxiously watching this case, I am going to break it all down for you right now. Stay with me. Do not go anywhere. This is Social and Travels, and this is breaking news. Welcome back to Social and Travels, everybody. And if you are brand new here, wow, you picked the most electric day to join us. I am so glad you are here. Now, if you watched my earlier video on birth tourism and the US crackdown, thank you, because thousands of you watched that, shared it, and messaged me asking, what is going to happen with the Supreme Court case? Well, the wait is over. For those of you who are just hearing about this case for the first time, let me give you a super quick background, and then we are going to go deep into today's ruling and what it means for you. Here is the short version. When President Donald Trump came back to the White House on January 20, 2025, one of the very first things he did, on his very first day back in office, was sign an executive order that would have ended automatic birthright citizenship in the United States. That means babies born in America to parents who are not permanent residents or citizens would no longer automatically become American citizens. This was a direct attack on the 14th Amendment, a part of the U.S. Constitution that has been law for over 150 years. Courts all over America immediately blocked the order, calling it unconstitutional. And the case went all the way up to the highest court in the land, the United States Supreme Court. They heard arguments on April 1, 2026. And yesterday, June 30, 2026, they gave us their answer. Let's talk about it. Okay. The ruling. Let's get straight into it. On June 30, 2026, yesterday, the United States Supreme Court ruled 6-3 to uphold birthright citizenship. They struck down President Trump's executive order. They said the Constitution, specifically the 14th Amendment, guarantees automatic citizenship to virtually all children born on American soil, regardless of the immigration status of their parents. The majority opinion, meaning the explanation of the court's decision, was written by Chief Justice John Roberts. Now, this is significant. Chief Justice Roberts is a conservative. He was appointed by a Republican president. And yet he sided with the majority against Trump's executive order. That tells you everything about how clear-cut this legal question was. In his opinion, Chief Justice Roberts traced the history of birthright citizenship all the way back to the colonists, through the abolitionists who fought for the rights of freed slaves, and through 128 years of consistent legal precedent since a landmark 1898 Supreme Court case called Wong Kim Ark versus the United States. He wrote, and I want to read this key line to you, that citizenship is, quote, the right to have rights, to freely participate in our political community. And the court said, that right belongs to every child born on American soil. Full stop. The court's rulings stated directly that children born in the United States to parents who are unlawfully present or who are here on temporary visas, like tourist visas, student visas, or work permits, are still, under the 14th Amendment, citizens of the United States at birth. 3 justices dissented, meaning 3 disagreed. They were the 3 most conservative members of the court, Justices Alito, Thomas, and Gorsuch. Justice Alito wrote in his dissent that, quote, the court has made a serious mistake. But they were outvoted 6-3. And in the United States Supreme Court, majority rules. The decision is final. This is now settled law. At least for now. Birthright citizenship is protected by the Constitution. Trump's executive order is dead. I want to spend just a moment here explaining why Chief Justice Roberts writing this opinion is so significant, because I think it adds important context. The United States Supreme Court has 9 justices. Under the current makeup, 6 of them are conservative, meaning they lean toward the Republican political perspective, and 3 are liberal. President Trump himself appointed 3 of those 6 conservative justices during his first term. So going into this ruling, many people expected the court to side with Trump, given that he had stacked the court with his own picks. But that is not what happened. Chief Justice John Roberts, a conservative, sided with the 3 liberal justices and 2 other conservatives, including Justice Brett Kavanaugh, to form a 6-3 majority against Trump's order. Even 2 of Trump's own Supreme Court appointees voted against him on this one. Why does this matter? Because it tells you that even within a deeply divided political environment, the legal case for birthright citizenship was so strong, so historically grounded, so constitutionally clear, that it crossed party lines. This was not a political decision. This was a legal decision based on 150 years of American constitutional law. And the fact that the ruling was 6-3 and not 5-4 makes it harder to challenge. This was not a razor-thin decision. 6 out of 9 of the highest judges in America agreed. The 14th Amendment means what it says. If you are born in America, you are American. Now, as you can imagine, President Trump was not happy. Not happy at all. Within hours of the ruling, Trump posted on his Truth Social platform, his version of Twitter, and said, quote, "The Supreme Court upheld birthright citizenship, which is too bad for our country." And then he added something very important. He said, "But we can easily make it up in Congress through legislation, with the support of the President. Congress should start today to work on ending expensive and unfair to our country, birthright citizenship. They will have my complete and total support." Let me translate this from political language to plain English. Trump is saying, okay, the Supreme Court beat me on this one. But I am not done. I am going to go through Congress and change the law. And Vice President J.D. Vance also weighed in. He called the ruling atrocious and a major mistake. He said, and this is important for us to understand, that the ruling might encourage more people to, in his words, come here quite literally on a vacation, give birth, and then all of a sudden, the child and their family have the full, and he was cut off, but the implication was clear. He is warning about birth tourism increasing as a result of this ruling. Now, here is the critical question you might be asking. Can Trump actually do what he is threatening? Can Congress change birthright citizenship through legislation, through regular law? Legal experts are divided on this. Some say yes, Congress could pass a law redefining who gets citizenship at birth. Others say no, because birthright citizenship is written directly into the Constitution, and you cannot override the Constitution with a regular law. To change the Constitution, you need what is called a constitutional amendment, and that requires approval from 2/3 of Congress and 3/4 of all 50 states. That is an extremely high bar to clear. So while Trump can threaten to go through Congress, actually eliminating birthright citizenship permanently would be a massive, complicated, long-term political fight. It is not happening tomorrow. It is not happening this year. For now, birthright citizenship is protected. Now, here is where I need to slow down and give you some very important nuance, because I know some of you watching this are thinking, okay, the Supreme Court upheld birthright citizenship. So birth tourism is back on. I can just book my flight to America to have my baby. Please, stop. Do not think like that. Because at the same exact time that the Supreme Court was handing down its ruling, something else was happening. Within hours of the ruling on June 30th, the United States Department of Justice, the Justice Department, circulated a memo. A memo directed to all federal prosecutors across the country. And that memo said this, that prosecutors should prioritize the investigation and prosecution of fraudulent birth tourism schemes. The memo specifically said that while many birth tourism cases are currently charged as visa fraud, prosecutors should also consider charging people under other laws, including wire fraud, money laundering, and aggravated identity theft. The memo ended with these words: "Together, we will bring illegal birth tourism to an end and those responsible to justice." Let that sink in. Even as birthright citizenship was being upheld by the Supreme Court, the Department of Justice was issuing a memo to intensify criminal prosecution of birth tourism. What this tells you is that there are actually two completely separate issues here. Issue 1 is whether birthright citizenship is constitutional, meaning whether a baby born in America to foreign parents is legally an American. The Supreme Court just answered that, yes, they are. Issue 2 is whether you can legally travel to America on a visitor visa for the purpose of giving birth. And the answer to that has always been no, and it remains no, and is now being enforced more aggressively than ever. Let me be crystal clear. The Supreme Court ruling does not mean birth tourism is now legal or safe. It simply means that if a baby is born on US soil, that baby is still a citizen. But the way you get there, using a visitor visa to specifically travel for birth tourism, is still considered visa fraud. And the US government is actively prosecuting people who do this. So the net result is, birthright citizenship survives. But the crackdown on birth tourism continues, and in fact, is now intensifying. I want to take a moment to tell you about a case that most people have never heard of, but which literally saved birthright citizenship yesterday. This case is called Wong Kim Ark versus the United States, and it was decided way back in 1898. That is 128 years ago. Here is the story. Wong Kim Ark was a man born in San Francisco, California, in 1873. His parents had emigrated from China. They were not American citizens. In fact, at that time, Chinese immigrants were barred from becoming US citizens by law. But Wong Kim Ark was born on American soil. His parents eventually returned to China, and Wong Kim Ark grew up and lived in San Francisco. At some point, he traveled to China to visit his family. When he tried to return to the United States, the US government refused to let him back in. They said he was not a citizen because his parents were Chinese subjects. Wong Kim Ark challenged this in court. And in 1898, the United States Supreme Court ruled in his favor. They said, "You were born on American soil, and that makes you an American citizen. Full stop. Your parents' nationality is irrelevant." That ruling from 1898 has been the foundation of birthright citizenship law in America ever since. And yesterday, Chief Justice Roberts pointed directly to that 128-year-old case and said, "Nothing has changed. The law is the same today as it was then." Trump's lawyers had tried to argue that the Wong Kim Ark case only applied because Wong's parents were domiciled, meaning they had permanent homes, in the United States. They said that people on temporary visas or people who entered illegally don't have that same domicile status, so their children shouldn't get citizenship. But the court rejected that argument completely. Chief Justice Roberts said there was scant evidence to support that interpretation. The Constitution means what it says. If you are born in America, you are American. The end. Now let us bring this home. What does this ruling actually mean for Nigerians, for the people watching this channel? I want to give you a clear, honest breakdown. For Nigerians who already have children born in the US, your child's citizenship is safe. This ruling confirms and protects it. Your child is still a US citizen. Their passport remains valid. Nothing has changed for children already born on American soil. You can breathe. For Nigerians who were anxiously watching this case because of family members born in the US, same answer. The citizenship is intact. The Supreme Court has spoken. Breathe easy. For Nigerians thinking about traveling to the US to give birth, this is where I need to be very direct with you. The Supreme Court ruling does not mean it is now safe or legal to travel to America on a tourist visa for the purpose of giving birth. As I explained, the Department of Justice has issued a memo, on the same day as this ruling, calling for intensified prosecution of birth tourism schemes. The U.S. Embassy in Nigeria issued a direct warning to Nigerians earlier this year, and that warning still stands. Consular officers are still instructed to deny visas to applicants they believe are traveling primarily to give birth. Customs officers at American airports are still trained to stop pregnant women suspected of birth tourism. ICE still has a birth tourism investigation unit. The baby will still be a citizen if born on American soil, but getting to American soil without being stopped, denied, or prosecuted is harder than it has ever been. For Nigerians considering Congress's next moves, watch what happens in the U.S. Congress closely. Trump has said publicly that he wants Congress to pass legislation to end birthright citizenship. This process would take time, months, possibly years, and may not succeed at all. But it is a threat worth monitoring. My advice, stay informed. Follow channels like this one. Because the situation can change, and you want to be ahead of it. For all Nigerians watching, the safest, cleanest, most sustainable way to pursue a connection to the United States is through legal immigration pathways, student visas, work visas, family reunification, the diversity lottery, or programs like the Education USA OFP we covered in a recent video. Those are the roads that lead to America without legal risk, without visa fraud charges, and without a potential permanent ban from the United States. That is the message from Social and Travels. Always has been. Always will be. I want to zoom out now and talk about why this ruling matters far beyond just the question of birth tourism or Nigerian families. Because this Supreme Court decision is genuinely historic, and it has implications that go way deeper than any single issue. First, this ruling is about the limits of presidential power. One of the biggest themes of the Trump administration has been the expansion of what a president can do by executive order, meaning, decisions the president makes on their own without going through Congress. Trump has been testing those limits constantly. And in this case, the Supreme Court said, no. The president cannot rewrite the Constitution with an executive order. There are things even the president cannot do alone. This is important for the rule of law in America. Second, this ruling matters because of what might have happened if Trump had won. If the Supreme Court had allowed the executive order to stand, approximately 255,000 babies born in the United States every year, to undocumented immigrants or visa holders, would have lost their automatic citizenship. Many of those babies could have been rendered what lawyers call stateless, meaning no country would claim them as citizens. Children without a country. That is a humanitarian catastrophe that the court has now prevented. Third, this ruling is significant because of history. The 14th Amendment was written after the American Civil War, specifically to ensure that freed black slaves, who had been denied citizenship for generations, would be recognized as full citizens of the United States. The amendment was designed to be broad and inclusive on purpose. To strip birthright citizenship would have been to undermine one of the most important legal achievements in American history. The Supreme Court recognized that and refused to allow it. Fourth, this ruling says something about the resilience of American democratic institutions. Even a court with a 6-3 conservative majority, even a court with 3 Trump-appointed justices, ruled against the president on this one. The law is the law. The Constitution is the Constitution. And when push came to shove, the justices, whatever their politics, upheld both. That is meaningful. In a world where institutions are being tested everywhere, including here in Nigeria, it is meaningful to see a court stand firm on principle. So what happens now? What should we watch for going forward? Number 1, congressional action. Trump has already called on Congress to start working immediately on legislation to end birthright citizenship. Senator Lindsey Graham, a senior Republican senator, has said he will make this a top priority when he chairs the Senate Judiciary Committee. Watch this space. If Congress moves on this, it will be a huge story and we will cover it right here on Social and Travels. Number 2. Continued birth tourism enforcement. Even with birthright citizenship protected, the crackdown on the process of birth tourism will continue and may intensify. Visa officers, airport officers, and federal prosecutors are all now on heightened alert. The Department of Justice memo makes that very clear. Number 3. A possible constitutional amendment push. The most extreme path Trump could take is pushing for a constitutional amendment to end birthright citizenship permanently. This would require 2/3 of both the Senate and the House of Representatives, plus ratification by 38 of the 50 U.S. states. This is an enormously high bar and many legal experts believe it is practically impossible in the current political environment. But it cannot be ruled out as a long-term goal. Number 4. Future Supreme Court cases. Vice President Vance has said that birthright citizenship is hanging by a thread, suggesting that the administration believes future legal challenges could succeed. If the makeup of the Supreme Court changes in the future, if justices retire or pass away and are replaced by more conservative ones, a future administration could try to bring a similar case back to the court. This is a long-term concern worth watching. For now though, today, birthright citizenship is protected. And that is the news. Alright, lightning recap. Everything we covered today. 1. On June 30, 2026, the United States Supreme Court ruled 6-3 to uphold birthright citizenship, striking down President Trump's executive order. TWO, Chief Justice John Roberts, a conservative, wrote the majority opinion, citing 128 years of legal precedent going back to the 1898 Wong Kim Ark case. 3. The ruling confirms that babies born in the U.S. to parents who are undocumented or on temporary visas are still U.S. citizens under the 14th Amendment. 4. Trump reacted angrily, vowing to push Congress to change birthright citizenship through legislation. VP Vance called the ruling atrocious. 5. On the same day as the ruling, the Department of Justice issued a memo ordering intensified prosecution of birth tourism schemes. So birthright citizenship is protected, but birth tourism enforcement is increasing. 6. For Nigerians with children already born in the U.S., your child's citizenship is safe. For Nigerians thinking of traveling to give birth, the legal and visa risk is higher than ever. 7. The safest path to America remains legal immigration, visas, education programs, work pathways. That is always the Social and Travels message. That is your full update. That is the ruling. That is the real picture. Guys, this is history. What happened yesterday in America is something people will be reading about in textbooks for years. The Supreme Court of the United States looked at one of the most powerful men in the world, looked at his executive order, and said, "No. The Constitution is bigger than any one person, any one president, any one political agenda." And for those of us watching from Nigeria, from Africa, let this also be a reminder that informed people are protected people. When you understand the law, when you understand what is happening, you make better decisions. That is exactly why this channel exists. To make sure you are never the last to know. Now I need you to do something for me right now. First, hit that like button. This video took serious research to put together and your like helps it reach more Nigerians who need this information. Second, share this video right now. Put it in every group chat you are in. Send it to your family members. Post it on your WhatsApp status. Someone in your life is worried about what this ruling means, and this video has the answers they need. Third, subscribe to Social and Travels and ring that notification bell, because this story is not over. Congress is going to move. The Department of Justice is going to act. And when anything new happens, I will be right here to break it down for you. And drop a comment below. I want to know, were you watching this ruling? Were you nervous? Are you relieved? Do you have a child born in the US? Tell me your story in the comments. I read everything. This is Social and Travels. Stay informed, travel smart, and I will see you in the next one. God bless you all.